I still remember the night I found out. It's burned into my brain with the vividness of a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. We were at that damn rehearsal dinner, full of chatter, clinking glasses, and that sickly sweet smell of cheap wine lingering in the air. I'd been pumped, finally getting married to the woman I loved. Everything was supposed to be perfect, or so I thought. The room was packed, everyone smiling, the lights casting a warm glow over everything. My fiancée, Lisa, looked radiant, her dress catching the light as she laughed at something her sister was saying. I was standing to the side, catching my breath, trying to get a grip on how happy I was. Then I saw her. No, I mean I saw her face pressed close to the best man, Mark. Their heads were almost touching, whispering something that made her giggle, that little too gentle giggle that I'd come to recognize as the beginning of something I wasn't supposed to see. My stomach clenched so tight it felt like I'd swallowed a fist. I froze. My palms started to sweat and I could feel the heat creeping up my neck. I had to look away, but I couldn't. My eyes were glued to them like I'd been cast in some sick, slow-motion horror film. Mark reached out, brushing a stray hair from her face, too intimate for a best man and bride-to-be. And then she whispered something soft, almost conspiratorial, and he grinned, leaning in like they shared some secret no one else was meant to know. Their faces so close, I could see the flicker of amusement in her eyes, the way her lips curled into a smile that didn't belong to a woman about to get married. I wanted to scream. Instead, I gripped the edge of the table so tight my knuckles turned white. My vision blurred around the edges, the room's noise faded into a dull echo. I could feel my chest tighten, my heart pounding so loud it deafened me. I had to get out. I turned sharply and maneuvered through the crowd, avoiding their eyes. I needed space to breathe, to think. I slipped outside into the cool night air, where the sharp scent of fresh-cut grass hit my face. My breath hitched, and I stood there trembling, trying to process what I'd just seen. This was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, I had just seen the woman I trusted with my life sharing secret smiles with my best man. That was it. The dam broke. I felt rage, betrayal, disgust, all jumbled into one sick knot in my stomach. I knew I had to find proof, something concrete. No way was I going to let her deny it or spin some bullshit story. I remembered the messages I'd seen earlier on her phone, the small notifications that seemed out of place, the quick glances she'd cast toward her purse every time she thought no one was watching. I'd kept quiet then, hoping I was wrong. But now, with that image burned into my mind, I knew I was right. They'd been sneaking around for a while. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. And now, I had to decide what to do next. The betrayal ran so deep it felt like my chest was hollowed out, like I'd been punched in the gut and left gasping for air. I stayed outside a few more minutes, trying to piece together my next move. My fingers trembled as I pulled my phone out of my pocket. The screen lit up in the darkness, and I hesitated for a second before opening her messages. I scrolled back through the recent chats, trying to make sense of the snippets I'd seen earlier. That's when I saw it clear as day. A string of secret texts loaded with inside jokes, flirtations, promises. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just a one-time thing or a drunken mistake. This was real. The worst part, she'd planned to tell me tonight. That's what the messages said, plans to confess, but with a twist. That's when I knew I had to do more than just confront her. I'd been played, used, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I took a deep breath, fists clenched tight. I had a plan forming, cold and calculated. I'd gather everything, make sure she understood I knew exactly what she'd done. And then I'd strike back. Not with cheap insults or childish fights, but with something that would make her regret crossing that line. The night was dark and the wind was biting. But inside me, a fire was just beginning to burn. I knew this wasn't going to end with just a fight or tears. She crossed a line and I was about to remind her that I don't get cheated on and walk away silent. Not anymore. I looked back toward the house, watching the flickering porch light. My mind was racing. The first step was to find proof, then to plan my move. The game was on, and I wasn't going to lose. I spent the next few hours going over everything in my head, trying to stay calm but failing miserably. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her laughing with Mark, heard their whispered jokes, felt that sick twisting in my stomach. I knew I couldn't just confront her blind. No, I needed proof that was irrefutable. I had to be smart, calculated. If I wanted to win this battle, I needed to dig deep, find every shred of evidence I could. First, I retraced her phone. Her messages weren't just flirtatious, they were downright intimate. They called each other pet names, promised to meet up after the wedding, talked about getting away once she was free from all this. I scrolled through her photos, finding a few selfies she'd taken in the past week, but nothing suspicious there. That was a dead end, until I remembered her hiding the phone. At the dinner table earlier, I slipped out of the house, heart pounding, and crept into her purse. My fingers trembled as I searched through her makeup bag and the small compartments. Then I hit pay dirt, a tiny folded note she'd tucked away. I unfolded it slowly like I was afraid it might explode. It was a handwritten message, full of promises, sealed with a lipstick kiss. "Can't wait to see you tonight. It's our secret just like before," it read. Her handwriting was shaky, like she was nervous, yet her words were bold enough to send a cold shiver down my spine. I backed out of her purse, clutching the note like it was my prize. That was enough. I'd seen enough to know this wasn't just some slip-up. It was planned, deliberate. My mind raced with possibilities for revenge. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to make her pay for this betrayal. Back inside, I carefully hidden the note in my pocket. My plan was coming together. I'd confront her when she least expected it, but before that, I needed to organize my evidence. I thought about calling a friend, someone I trusted, but tonight wasn't about sharing or seeking comfort. It was about making her understand that I knew everything. The next morning, I woke up with a sick feeling in my gut. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I arranged my evidence, screenshots of her messages, the note, the photos I'd taken of her and Mark, so I'd be ready to confront her face to face. I wanted her to see I meant business. When I arrived home that afternoon, she was in the kitchen, pretending everything was fine. She smiled when she saw me, but I watched her eyes flicker nervously. I didn't say a word at first. Instead, I took out the evidence one by one, laying it on the table. Her face turned pale. "What is this?" she asked, voice trembling. "You know exactly what it is," I said, voice cold and steady. "This is the proof I needed. The messages, the note, the photos, everything. Tell me, Lisa, how long has this been going on?" She tried to deny it, but her voice cracked. "It's not what you think." It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. "Don't bullshit me," I snapped. "You planned this, you and Mark. After everything we had, you were supposed to be my wife, my partner. How could you do this to me?" She looked down, tears streaming down her face. "I never meant for it to go this far. I was just confused." "You were cheating," I interrupted sharply. "You lied, you betrayed everything we built, and you think I'm just going to forget?" Her shoulders sagged. She looked so vulnerable, like she was trying to plead her case but knew she'd lost. That's when I realized I couldn't let it end with just words. I needed to show her that I wasn't going to be the fool she thought I was. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the betrayal pressing down on me. I had a plan, something cold, something precise. I didn't want her to get away with this, not without consequences. I decided I'd make her regret crossing that line. As I turned to leave the kitchen, I looked her in the eyes one last time. "This isn't over. I'll make sure you remember what you did. And when I'm done, you're going to wish you never stepped foot in my life." She whispered, "Please don't do this." But I was already walking out the door, my mind racing with the next step. I knew I couldn't just confront her and walk away. No, I needed leverage. I needed to ensure she understood she'd lost more than just me. She'd lost everything she ever thought she had. The pieces were set. All that was left was executing the plan. I had one shot to make her see I was serious. And once I made my move, there would be no turning back. The morning after I laid everything out on the table, I felt like I was walking around with a steel jaw clenched so tight I thought it might snap. My mind kept spinning in circles, trying to figure out how I'd move forward, how to turn this betrayal into my victory. I knew I couldn't just storm into her life and demand answers. That'd be too easy, too impulsive. No, I had to be smarter than that. I had to be patient, cold, calculating. I stayed up late that night, researching every angle. I knew she'd be expecting some sort of confrontation, so I had to be 2 steps ahead. I needed her to believe I was still the same guy, trusting, maybe even naive, but then hit her with the truth she'd underestimated. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, and trapped. My plan was simple, brutal, and effective. I'd leak the evidence to her closest friends and her family, but I'd do it in a way that made her realize she'd lost more than a marriage. I wanted her to feel the humiliation, the shame, like a stone sinking into her gut. I started by calling my best friend, Jake. I trusted him more than anyone. "Listen, I need you to do me a favor," I said, voice low so no one could overhear. "I've got some dirt on Lisa. I want you to post it online anonymously. Show her world she's been caught, but don't let her know I'm involved just yet." He hesitated. "Are you sure about this? It's pretty harsh." "Trust me," I cut him off. "She's been cheating, Jake. I want her to feel what I felt last night. I want her to understand she crossed a line and there's no coming back from it." Within an hour, I saw the first signs of her world unraveling. A coworker sent her a message asking if she was serious about the wedding or just playing some elaborate joke. Then her phone started blowing up. I watched her face drain of color as the screenshots of her secret texts floated across her screen. Her hands shook and she stared at the messages as if she'd never seen them before. She looked up at me that morning, her eyes filled with panic. "Who did this? How?" "I told you," I said coldly. "You lost your right to control the story. Now everyone knows what you've been hiding." She burst into tears. "Please, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just confused, I swear." "Stop," I said sharply. "It's too late for apologies. You're gonna have to live with this. I'm not the one who betrayed the vows, Lisa. You are." She sank onto the couch, clutching her stomach like she was in pain. I watched her, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. I'd made my move, but I knew this was just the beginning. The fallout was immediate. Her friends called her family demanded explanations. Her boss asked for her to step down from her position temporarily. The wedding was called off, all in the span of a single day. And through it all, I kept my distance, letting her stew in the chaos I'd created. But I wasn't done. I needed her to understand that I wasn't just some guy who'd get betrayed and walk away. No, I was going to make sure she paid for every ounce of pain she caused. That meant planning the final blow, something that would hit her where it hurt most, but without crossing into violence or anything too reckless. I started to work on my revenge with precision. I knew her routines, her weaknesses. I knew she valued her reputation more than anything. So I'd use that. I'd make her feel exposed, vulnerable, and utterly powerless. I was going to ensure that her world crumbled beneath her, without any bloodshed, just pure, calculated revenge. Every decision I made from here on out was about making her regret her choices. I wanted her to feel the same gut-wrenching betrayal, but on a different level, public, undeniable, and permanent. I knew I could do it. I just had to wait for the right moment, and when I did, she'd realize just how deep the rabbit hole went. I sat back, watching her struggle with her phone, trying to make sense of the mess I'd unleashed. I could see her trembling, her face streaked with tears, and I knew this was only the start. She'd pushed me to the edge, and I was going to ensure she fell hard. Next, I planned to take things even further. She thought she'd gotten away with cheating, with pretending everything was fine. But I was about to show her that the consequences of betrayal didn't stop at words or social humiliation. She'd learn what it meant to be truly exposed. I'd make her pay. And when I was done, I'd leave her standing alone with nothing but her shame. And I was just getting started. The next few days were a whirlwind of chaos, and I relished every second of it. Her world was falling apart, texts from her friends, calls from her family, questions coming from her boss. That feeling of power, of knowing I'd set the trap and watched her walk right into it, was intoxicating. I kept my distance, letting her stew in her own mess. But I knew I had to escalate this, push it further, make her truly feel the weight of her betrayal. I started to research online how to escalate the situation, little things I could do to turn the public humiliation into something unforgettable. I wanted her to understand that her secrets weren't safe anymore, that she'd lost control of her reputation. My plan was to leak proof of her affair to a few anonymous sources that would get the news circulating fast, sparking gossip and suspicion that would follow her for years. But I also knew I needed something more personal, something that would hit her where it hurt, her pride, her sense of security. That's when I remembered her social media accounts. She loved posting her perfect life selfies, her latest designer shoes, her brunches at fancy cafes. That was her world, her curated image. I decided that I'd take that away from her, piece by piece. One night I stayed up late, hacking into her account. Yeah, it wasn't hard, and honestly I wasn't proud, but desperate times call for desperate measures. I changed her profile picture to a candid shot of her and Mark, the one I'd secretly taken during the dinner. I replaced some of her captions with bitter, indirect messages about betrayal and lies. Then I started a fake account, one that looked like a private fan page, and I posted the screenshots of her messages with a little caption: "When your perfect life turns out to be a lie." The next morning, I checked her feed. Her eyes widened in horror as she scrolled through her timeline, seeing her own words and images splashed across a different profile. It was as if her entire world had collapsed overnight. Her hands shook so badly she couldn't hold her phone steady. She stormed into the living room, her face flushed with fury and humiliation. "Who did this?" she demanded, voice trembling. "I'd say that's for you to figure out," I said calmly, watching her eyes dart around. "Your little secret is no longer safe. Everyone's going to know what you've been hiding." "God, you're sick," she spat, tears streaming down her face. "Don't act innocent," I shot back. "You thought you could cheat, lie, and get away with it. Well, I've just made sure you won't. You're not going to save face anymore." She sank onto the couch, trembling, clutching her head. "This isn't fair, please." "Life's not fair," I said, voice sharp. "You lied to me, to everyone. Your reputation's dead, Lisa. And I want you to remember I'm the one who's still standing. You're the one who's broken, and I've only just begun." I was already planning the final move, the one that would leave her completely shattered. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about sending a message, about making her realize that betrayal comes at a price. I'd set everything in motion, and soon she'd know what it felt like to be truly powerless. I left her crying on the couch and went to bed that night knowing I'd made her feel exposed. But I also knew that to truly end this, I had to do one last thing, something that would push her over the edge, make her understand she'd lost more than just her reputation. And that's when I decided what my final move would be. I'd confront her directly, reveal the full extent of her betrayal, and show her I wasn't going to give her a second chance. She might think she could hide behind her tears and apologies, but I'd strip away every layer of her illusion. She'd realize who really had the power in this game. I just had to wait for the right moment. The next day would be D-Day, and when that day came, she'd wish she'd never crossed me. I was ready to make her see that her actions had consequences, and I was the one enforcing them now. The revenge was brewing, and I was about to serve it cold. The day I decided to confront her was the day everything finally boiled over. I knew I couldn't delay any longer. She was losing herself in the aftermath of everything I'd unleashed, and I wanted her to feel it in the worst way. I planned it meticulously. No emotional outbursts, no shouting match, just cold, brutal clarity. I waited until late afternoon. The house was eerily quiet, just the hum of the refrigerator and her restless packing echoing in my mind. I'd told her I wanted to talk, to get everything out in the open, but what I really wanted was for her to see that I was serious, that I was going to end this once and for all. When she finally came into the living room, her eyes were red-rimmed, her face pale, and her trembling hands clutching her purse like a security blanket. She looked like she was about to cry, but I knew better. I saw through her. She was a cornered animal, and I'd make sure she understood that there was no way out. "You wanted to talk," I said softly but firmly. "Let's give you one." She hesitated for a moment, then sat down across from me. Her voice wavered. "Please, just tell me what you want." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of weeks of betrayal pressing down on me. "You lied to me, Lisa. You cheated, you betrayed everything we had. I saw the messages, the notes. You planned this, didn't you?" Her eyes flicked away. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. It just happened." "Stop," I interrupted sharply. "You were planning this from the start. All those secret messages, the sneaking around. You wanted to hurt me just as much as you could, didn't you?" "No," she whispered, eyes filling with tears. "I was confused. I didn't want to lose everything. I thought I could fix it, fix us." But you didn't, I cut her off again. You chose Mark over me, over us, so don't come crying now, I've seen enough. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the evidence, the screenshots, the note, the photos. I laid everything out on the table between us. Her trembling grew worse, tears streaming down her face, but I kept my voice steady. This is who you really are, Lisa, I said. You thought you could get away with it, that I'd never find out. But I did, and I'm not going to let you get away with pretending this was some mistake or misunderstanding. She looked at the evidence, her voice barely above a whisper. Please, don't do this. I love you. I swear it. I was just confused. Love? I scoffed. You think betrayal is love. You're nothing but a liar and a cheat, and I'm done. Her shoulders sagged, tears flowing freely now. She looked broken, defeated. That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted her to realize that her actions had consequences, real consequences, and I was the one handing them out. You're going. Leave, I said, voice cold. Get your things and go. Don't bother trying to explain. I don't want to hear your lies anymore. My trust is gone, and I don't want to see your face again. She looked up at me with wide, pleading eyes. Please don't do this. Give me another chance. But I shook my head. No, you've had your chance. You threw it away. She stood up, clutching her purse tightly. You're making a mistake, she whispered, voice trembling. No, I said, standing too. This is the right choice. You betrayed me, and I'm done. If you walk out that door, don't come back. She hesitated, then slowly moved toward the door. As she reached for the handle, I handed her the keys. Take these, you won't need them anymore. Her hand trembled as she took the keys, and she looked back at me one last time, eyes full of pain and regret. I'm sorry, she whispered, voice cracking. Sorry isn't enough, I said quietly. Goodbye, Lisa. She left, shutting the door behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. I finally allowed myself to breathe, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I'd done what I had to do. I'd taken control, and I'd ended it. Sitting down, I looked around the house, the empty space where her presence used to fill every corner. I realized that I'd finally reclaimed my peace, even if it came at a steep price. My takeaway from all this: sometimes the only way to truly move forward is to cut the strings, no matter how painful. Trust is precious, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. But I learned that revenge, when done right, isn't about destruction. It's about reclaiming your life and dignity. And that's exactly what I did. In the days that followed, I felt a strange sense of clarity I hadn't experienced in years. The house was eerily silent without her footsteps, her laughter, or that mocking tone she sometimes used to brush off her guilt. It was just me, the hollow echo of what used to be, and the quiet realization that I was finally free from her betrayal. I went through the process of sorting out the mess she left behind, filling out the paperwork to end the lease, changing my locks, and finally handing over the keys. It was a small act, but it felt like reclaiming my power. I never wanted to see her again. I knew I'd made the right choice. Sitting in my now empty apartment, I looked around at the bare walls, the empty shelves. For a moment, I felt the sting of loss of what I thought was real, of the future I'd envisioned. But then I remembered the strength I'd found in myself during this nightmare. I realized that betrayal, no matter how deep, can be a catalyst for change if you choose to see it that way. I finally closed the door on that chapter of my life, locking it behind me. The pain had been sharp, but it faded into a bitter truth I now carried with me. Nobody's worth sacrificing your dignity or peace. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to mend. But I learned that it's better to walk away than to stay and be consumed by someone else's lies. I want to tell anyone reading this: if you're going through something similar, know that it's okay to feel betrayed, angry, or lost. But don't stay trapped in the rubble of your own heartbreak. Cut your losses, walk away, and rebuild. Revenge isn't about hurting someone else. It's about reclaiming your life on your own terms. And in the end, that's what I did. I took back my peace, my dignity, and my future. No matter how hard it feels in the moment, you can do the same. The pain will fade, and someday you'll look back and realize that walking away was the ultimate act of strength.